Hello and welcome back. So in the last couple of lessons we've been working on this theme context, which is made available to the whole application, the dark Boolean variable and its setter function. And then we used it to implement this toggle button to switch darkness on and off. In this lesson we're going to add another context, which will be authentication context. And that will also provide us with a Boolean flag, which indicates whether we're logged in or whether we're logged out. When we're in the logged in state, it will also provide us with the email address of the logged in user. And don't worry, we're not going to write the whole context from scratch. Instead, we'll just copy the existing one and make some changes. So I'll create this auth context and just put it to one side, and then I will copy the whole of theme context into it, and I'll just make a few global search and replace changes. I'll change dark to user. Notice I've got case sensitivity on, and set dark to set user. And of course, because I'm changing the theme context to an auth context, I'll change theme to auth. And that will actually get us a long way. The user here is a Boolean, but what I really want is an object that contains a Boolean, which says whether the user's logged in, and also a string with their email address. So let's just search and replace Boolean. I'm going to replace it with authenticated user, which is going to be my new type. And then I've actually got that type prepared. So let me just paste it in here. As you can see, authenticated user's just got a couple of properties: is logged in, which is Boolean, and an email, which is a string if they're logged in, or a null if they're not. Now, this application is at this point just going to toggle between a logged in state and a logged out state. It's not going to do actual authentication. So I'm just going to have a couple of constants which represent those two states, like this. So I'm going to have a logged in user state where logged in is true and the email address is this, and then a logged out state where the logged in is false and the email is null. And I'll just use these later on in the file. And to make it simple for the user of this context, rather than having to set user values, I'll get rid of this set user and I'll replace it with just a simple login function and logout function like this. So we can see these functions, you don't need to pass them parameters and they don't return any data. You just call them and they will set the internal state to either logged in user or logged out user. And if we nip down to the bottom of the file, we can see that we can no longer export set user because it doesn't exist. So we need to get rid of that and replace it with the login and logout functions. So let me just change this line of code. There we are. So we're exporting those functions, and I do need to define what they do. They're just going to call set user to set the user state to either the logged in user or the logged out user. So the last thing we want to do is to attend to this saving and restoring the context data. So let's start with the save function. We pass it context data, and context data is an item which has just a single property, user. And what we want to do is save in local storage. We provide a key name, which is user. But now our value is an object. So here, what I need to do is remove this true and false and save the whole of context data.user into storage. But the storage requires a string, so we need to convert this to a string. And we do that by calling JSON stringify on the object, and that will literally just convert the entire object to a string. So now we'll have saved all of our user data into storage, and then we just need to change this load context. So I will say local storage get item user is assigned to a value called stored data. And if we look at stored data, we'll see that it's either a string or it's null. So if we've never stored anything in the first place, it'll be null. But if we have stored something, then it will have clearly been stored using save context, and it will be this string. So we just need to deal with both cases. So in both cases, I'm going to return something that looks like an object that is user and then something inside it. And in the case that stored data is null, the thing we're going to place inside it is just going to be a logged out user. So I can literally put logged out user here. But in the case that we actually manage to get some data back from the storage, then I basically need to convert the string we got back into an object. And the way we do that, I'll say else return user colon, and then I just apply the opposite. I say JSON.parse stored data, and then just say authenticated user for good measure, just so the reader of the code understands what's going on here. So just to recap, when we save our data, we take the context data user object, we convert it to a string, and we store it under this user key. And when we want to read it back, we get whatever's at this user key, which is either a string or a null. If it's a null, we return to the user an object which is user colon logged out user. And just to remind you, that will be something like is logged in false and an email of null. Otherwise, we just return what was stored, converted back from a string into an authenticated user object. So that actually is the whole of the context implemented. And now all we need to do is to first of all go to our app and make the context available. So I'll just copy this line and change the name to auth and import that. And then finally, the last thing I need to do is to just update the header to add the login button. So the first thing is to add the context in. So just like the theme context here, we'll put the auth context, and that's going to need importing. So I'll just grab that. And then I can place my button in here as well. So I've already got one that I can copy in here. And as you can see, it's very similar to the set dark button. It's got the same margin and is a ghost button. It is not an icon size, it's going to be a string instead. The on-click handler is just going to test whether we're logged in and then either call logout or log in accordingly. And the string inside the button again is going to test logged in and put an appropriate message, either log out with the current email address or log in. So that should all be working now. Let's just close some of these files. And we'll go back to our browser. And this time, here is the thing that we've been working on. You can see it's now working fine. And if I look in my storage state, you'll see down here in local storage, I now have both user and dark. And user, when I'm logged in, it says is logged in true and email demo at example. And when I log out, it says is logged in as false and email is just set to null. So with that, it all seems to be working hunky-dory, and I will see you in the next lesson.